So the understanding had such a big impact on my life that, I just naturally wanted to share it with other people, found that becoming how I shared in my work, how I worked with clients. But I noticed that working with the original students of Sydney Banks, these, first generation teachers as they're called, I really noticed that when I was learning and studying and being mentored by them, that I felt tremendous impact in the way that they shared the understanding. And it's not to say that other people don't share it beautifully, but there was something unique that I did feel about having the opportunity to work with so many of them. And so I just realized that they're not going to be, teaching forever. And I wanted to create a program that would allow as many people as possible to really have the benefit of learning directly from them, and not just from an hour talk at a conference, but to be able to really have an immersive experience and spend the weekend and spend time with them. And I also wanted to create a program that wasn't just a one weekend opportunity, because I recognize the value of staying in the conversation, immersing yourself in it, in the understanding, and being part of a group and going through that journey as a group and benefiting from the benefit of that group experience. And so that was really the inspiration behind the Soul-Centered series, to give people the opportunity to learn directly from these first generation teachers and to benefit from the group experience. And the other thing that I think is quite unique about the program, I'm not really aware of other programs with this focus, there isn't any application focus. It's really focused on the deepening and the connecting with the true self. It's really all about looking in the direction of the spiritual nature of the understanding, focused on deepening your connection with your true nature in whatever way that shows up for you. And for me, because of that focus, there can be such a range of participants that get tremendous benefit. We had Dr. Bill Pettit last year participate as a speaker and a student in the program. He said he wanted to experience the weekends with all of his peers and learn from them. And then we had people that were also quite new to the understanding, but because of that connection with the true nature, it's really, it's going to show up in whatever way that it shows up. So whether you're new, whether you've been doing it for 40 years, there's always more to see. So that's the inspiration on my end. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to hear from some of the participants from last year. And we're going to kick it off with Anthony, who's, are you in Brooklyn right now?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm in, very proud, very strong Brooklyn.
That's great. And Anthony participated, and this was something that we didn't really recognize as a thing last year, but several people did this, where they participated both in person and virtually. So Anthony had the experience of coming to Santa Monica, being in the weekend, but also participating virtually as well. So I think that's a unique experience too. And so it worked so well. We had several people do it last year that we just decided to make a hybrid option available for this program too. Yeah, so go ahead, Anthony, I'll turn over to you.
And you know what? I think that, because I was very torn living on the other coast, living, some might say on the worst coast, and I agree, the West Coast is the best coast. But, on the East Coast, it's a long trip for me to get over there. But I know that what was special about this program to me was the pacing of it. Like, I really liked the fact that it was spread out over 6 months with one meeting every month. And that pacing felt like a very good progression for me over the course of the 6 months. And even though I wasn't there in person for each of those meetings, even the ones where I was there virtually, I was staying in the conversation, and we've all heard this term of like staying in the conversation. And I'm sure all of us have been out there jonesing for good programs sometimes. Like, how am I going to find, a good program, a 3P fix? But it's a misnomer, because really staying in the conversation, it's nothing about the conversation itself. It's really all about the feeling that comes with this type of conversation. That when we're all looking in the same direction, when we all have this common vocabulary to get beyond the everyday thinking and emotions and feelings that we all cycle through, when we can use that common vocabulary to get to a deeper place together, then the words exchanged really become meaningless. And it's the feeling that's created. And I had the opportunity to experience the feeling both in person live and also virtually. And this was one of the programs where I did think that the feeling came across virtually almost as much. Now, obviously, I still think it's better to be there in person, but virtually, I still had that sense of being recharged after a weekend. And one of the reasons, too, was I think there was a real emphasis in the program on hearing from those who had direct contact, with Sydney Banks. Really such an interesting way to approach it. But that also took away some of the anxiety that I think we might feel as participants, to say, well, when am I going to speak? When am I going to have my transformation? When am I going to have my breakthrough? What should I be thinking about right now? And when you know the purpose is there to listen to others who were taught directly by Sid Banks, it takes away some of that urgency to feel our own development or to get the ego out there. So that was one of the most helpful things, because everyone did share, but there wasn't an emphasis on the participants as much as there was an emphasis on the shared wisdom that we could get from the people who have been, in touch directly with Sydney Banks. So I think the pacing of the program, the feeling that you get through the conversation, and then also, it's just awesome to work with Rohini and Angus. But one of my favorite days in the program was that day, I think it was a Friday night, when Rohini, I think it was George and Linda, and maybe they just weren't there, but Rohini just ran with it. And that 2 or 3 hours was like some crystallization of the whole program. It was phenomenal. So yes, there's a huge importance to, being with these people who've touched Sydney Banks. They actually shook his hand, but, spending time in that feeling, in that conversation, it brings us all back. Because there's not an emphasis as much on the participants. There's more an emphasis on the universality of the ideas and the power that they have to transform our lives.
Well, thank you, Anthony. That's beautiful. Well said. All right. So we're going to go to Julie next. Hi, Julie. Julie's in Santa Monica.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is exciting. So I reflected on what I thought I would share that would be helpful. And one of the things I feel like really stood out to me, like there was so much that happened, but there were like certain things that kept coming back to me over and over from my time in the program. And one of them is like, I used to spend all my time in intellectual institutions. It was like my absolute favorite thing to do in life. And I didn't see the connection between how busy my mind was and how hard life was. And because I was looking in that direction so much, I really just didn't have I didn't have like a good reference point. And what I feel like I got from the program that kind of was throughout the entire thing was the teachers were sharing with such simplicity that my mind just quieted to a degree I really hadn't felt before and hadn't felt so consistently. And if you had asked me if that was possible like a few years ago, I would have said no. So to actually be experiencing it now, even reflecting on it and appreciating it again for how much it's given me, is just been such an impactful part of what I received. And I do think the teachers, having shared this understanding for so long, it's like they really see the heart of it, and then we get to see to the heart of it with them. And there were certain points where I was like, wow, yeah, it really is so much simpler than I thought. So I really enjoyed that. And then 2 insights that I really stood out to me was one of my family members came down with some illnesses while I was in the program. And it's somebody that I love really deeply. And I was like suffering, like I was having a really hard time with it. And it was during Dr. Pettit's weekend, and I must have asked a question, and his answer to me was, worry has nothing to do with love. And I don't know why that hit me so hard, but it just hit me on every level, every cell. And I started to see more clearly, like, wow, I have been thinking that worry is love. I thought they were the same thing. And I just recently spent a week with this family member, and in the past, it would have been kind of excruciating because I would have been worrying so much. And this time we had just a really lovely, peaceful, simple time together. And of course, there were moments where I worried or I wanted to do something to try and make the situation different, but it would come and go with much greater ease than it ever did before. So it's not just that like my mind's quieted, but there was just such a practical difference in my life from some of the insights that I had. So I just wanted to share that aspect of it.
Thanks, Julie. And I love that you're pointing to kind of the simplicity. I think that the more I spend in the understanding, the more simplicity comes forward and just the elegance of that. So thanks for speaking to that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next we'll go to Jessie. And Jessie's in LA.
I am. Well, yes. Thank you, Rohini, for allowing me to share some of my experience and for following the inspiration that you had to create something that could reach out to so many in such a delicious way. Let me get my notes that I prepared for today. No, just kidding. So many things of beauty were experienced and that I felt being there over the weekends. But one primary thing that's just kind of coming forward right now is to recognize student and teacher is a line of mush in this kind of a situation. Yes, there is mastery and wisdom and experience that all of these amazing people have come, together to share with us. But the beauty of it for me is that it's happening within me, and I'm recognizing that in the different way people express themselves, in the accessibility that you have with them in those moments of, talking to them in the breaks, or maybe if you're lucky enough to go grab a cup of coffee with one of them, or just the fact that there is nothing to have to do, be, or become to reap the benefits of this experience and this understanding. And they are such an example of that, because, being ordinary is what makes it extraordinary. And I loved the tapestry of, personality and flavor and expression. And it was a wide range, from Elsie to Kathy, you know what I mean? They just, everybody brought their own thing, and they brought their own thing, completely free to be themselves. And in me, it was so exciting. I get so happy, like, oh, wait, I can do the 3 Ps and still shop and love to shop. I think that was Kathy's little thing, or, just to be able to really, really see myself in them, and to know this is working, this is happening, this is alive within us all. And just to settle and marinate in it, consistently over the weekends, and the timing in the weekend was just so easy and not forced. And the attunement to what was going on in the room, was just so great. It just felt like we were all taken care of in terms of, like, if you needed a break, or just a very comfortable environment to go and leave your whatever at the door, your mind, your concerns, your worries, and take that time for yourself and drink it in and be inspired. It just, the level of inspiration, the way it was presented, was just beautiful. And obviously them being first generation carries something with it that has, just another delicious flavor to it. And yet the reminder was this is where we're all at. This is what's available for all of us. This is my experience of it. Have your experience of it. And that just opened up so many doors for me to just go right in as deep as I could possibly go. So yeah, it was good.
Thank you, Jessie. I love how you speak to it, and I really appreciate that humanness too, like the extraordinaries in the ordinary, and the sort of the even playing field between facilitators and participants, and just that we're all in it together. We're all in this human experience that is more than meets the eye, and we can share in more than meets the eye together in that way. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautifully said.
Thank you.
All right, Nushin. Nushin is joining us from Palos Verdes.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much again for having me on this webinar. My experience is a little bit different than the amazing experiences others shared. I've been so used to, for a few decades, of living a very fast-paced life. Even though I was a yoga teacher and had a master's in spiritual psychology, my life was just so fast-paced. My business consulting career, had me working 60, 70 hours a week. And there was a sense that, this is good. I'm busy, I'm fulfilled. I don't like to have idle time. So it's no wonder that I invited Rohini to coach me when I was recruited to lead a very complex global project. And the 3P I didn't really know that much about the 3P understanding, but it worked. I was able to really shine. It was a kind of setting where there were just many stakeholders and many complex personalities. Everybody kind of very competitive, and the 3P understanding, literally on a daily basis, it helped me show up and be creative, be respectful, engage in dialogue with people that I just thought were out to get me. It was just so fantastic. And it just, I was like, wow, this works. This is great. I'm in. And then I started to coach others on this. And then the Soul-Centered series, it was as if, I love going to the beach and running by the beach. It's as if I've been so used to running on the asphalt that the 3P, the Soul-Centered series was as if I just stepped into the sand. So it really forced me to slow down. And it was really uncomfortable. I found myself the first few weekends, I was really restless. I wanted there to be a curriculum and a structure and processes, and I wanted to do it right. And there was just no doing it right or wrong. There was just this deep vessel of peace, really, that Rohini had created, where there was just deep sharing and stillness. And it wasn't until maybe the third or fourth weekend, or maybe the third weekend, that I think Barb kind of brought it up in the conversation, that I met my restlessness. I met my boredom, and I realized, wow, that's just this layer of thinking that I just was mistaking for reality. And then I just didn't like myself. I remember the weekend with George and Linda Pransky. It was as if I was being extra social that weekend. And I was like, oh, who is this person? Again, I'm so grateful to Rohini for putting the Soul-Centered series on, because again, it was unlike any other workshop or program that I'd ever done. And it helped me to meet myself at a level that I couldn't before, because I would get so wrapped up in doing it, in performing. But since there was no performance aspect to it, I was really able to meet myself, and just such an extraordinary weekend, program, and I'm so glad I'll be doing it again, and just looking forward to slowing down even more and meeting myself even more from this, from the beautiful space that you all create. It's truly unique. And I can talk on and on about it, but I think that's my 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Nushin. And I love how you shared kind of your arc, because I mean, I've been on that arc with you, so I know it well. But people can misunderstand that discomfort that happens when we slow down as like, oh, that's a problem. And for you to speak to that so, you know, openly and transparently, I think is so helpful to realize, like, yeah, there can be a readjustment when there isn't an agenda to do something or get somewhere, where it really is just dropping into that peace and the love that is our true nature. Like that is the intention. I don't know if it's an agenda. Maybe it's an agenda.
Well, you know, when I was reflecting on just what to share, again, it reminded me of the beach, how sometimes I love running on the concrete, but of course I love running on the sand too, but there's a difference. And on the sand, I do slow down and I do feel the beauty of the beach so much more than when I'm just running on the concrete. And I love both, but I just had never slowed down long enough to meet myself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you. And thanks. And great to have you coming back. Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Kine now in Norway.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, so I'm in Norway and I've been a virtual participant. And before the program started, I was kind of thinking that, you know, this is totally different than being there in real life. And I'll have probably see some changes and feel it a bit, but I didn't know that it would have as much effect as actually being there. But after the first weekend, it was like, wow, I just felt it so strongly, like a connection to everyone in the room and the teachers and everyone who speaks. So before this program, because I have been like scared my whole life, and since I was a kid, and I've struggled a lot with eating disorders and different things, and also like the chronic illness I had the last 8 years with physical pain, and being diagnosed with PTSD and all of these things that have affected me. I didn't know that my life would change so much from this course. And I think like it was hard for me to, in the beginning, because I knew that I have to kind of put away these, you know, what I think I knew and all these beliefs I had about my identity and who I was. And for me, that was really hard because I had to be vulnerable enough to let go. And for me, it was very painful to let go. And the most amazing thing about this program for me was that Rohini created this space that felt very safe. And I could always show up as, you know, exactly who I was. And often that was, you know, crying. Sometimes it was happy and sometimes sad and sometimes all over the place, maybe a bit dramatic. I don't know. It felt like that. But like, however it was, like I always felt like I didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with being human and exploring and being open. And that space that was created was so like always being met with love and just always coming back to just this connection with everyone in the program was just amazing to me. I didn't expect it to be like that. And I think that because the teachers in this program, they've been teaching for a long time, but they're also very different. So I learned so much about different areas in my life, even with my physical pain. So I had no idea that things would change so much. And the support from Rohini was how to deal with that change. It was so nice. But also just, I mean, I have had anxiety my whole life, and this January I experienced for the first time, like, I'm free from it. It's not there anymore. And for me, that's just a huge gift. And that's just one thing that happened. And another thing that also I didn't expect at all, because I did this program because I'm searching, I guess, and I wanted to feel better and I wanted to learn. And after I experienced trauma, I had problems with reading and speaking properly. And just like in this program, I was like, all of a sudden, it was, wait, I want to start sharing too. I want to talk too. And to me, that was shocking. Just this last few months, just traveling to London and becoming an iHeart facilitator, and also just being in front of a lot of people in public speaking and talking about my story and my life, and just doing that when I have experienced so much anxiety. Like, if you told me a year ago, I would have said, you're crazy, like, that's not possible. but that's happened because of this program. And I'm very it's very difficult to explain it in words, but I'm trying now, I guess. But you know, the thing that has meant the most has been the connection and the understanding with all of the other participants. And it's very surprising to me looking back, because I've only been here through the internet. I haven't actually met anyone physically. So yeah, that it's meant a lot to me, obviously. And I truly recommend being a virtual participant too, because to me that was just really, really good. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Kine. It's just, I feel just so, my heart just feels so open listening to you. And I'm so excited that you're sharing this now with others, because you're just such a wonderful facilitator. You share so beautifully. And you reminded me, you know, you were really so engaged in the program in terms of the webinars and the office hours. And so I also wanted to mention that for people, that the program is designed in a way that there is the deep impact immersive weekends, but woven into that are also in between webinars, this time around with the facilitators of the weekends. But I also offer a weekly office hour that, you know, many people have said they've appreciated the community and the continuity that brings. And Kina, you were a regular participant, and I loved having you there. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing. All right, and now we'll go to Angus. Oh, Angus, you're muted. Do you need me to unmute you?
I thought you did that. I thought you thought I was talking too much. Can you hear me? Now I can't hear you, but I guess you've muted yourself.
I can hear you.
I'm up. I'm ready to go. So I guess my role in the Soul Centered series, obviously, apart from being a very willing participant, was, I guess I could say, maybe I was co-executive producer. Maybe when I was in the room, I was also the floor manager. But either way, at the back of the room, I had a really kind of a wide angle shot of what was going on, which was a really interesting perspective to have. Just thinking back upon reflection about, you know, how the series unfolded and what you know, how it evolved. But how I thought I would share this morning, it just came to me just a few moments ago. I'm going to try this metaphor on for size. And and it makes me think about how and Rohini will laugh at this because I always try and use soccer references. But at the moment in the UK, the soccer season is it's on its break basically, and so that is a period of time. They call it the off season, where new players come in. They try new systems, they try new formats, and they play a lot of exhibition games, really just to try and find a rhythm with the new players or to create a rhythm with the team. And why I think this is pertinent, this metaphor works in this situation, is that I feel like with the Soul-Centered series, when it started, and I love what Anthony said about, you know, how there was this sort of feeling that sort of developed over time. And I think that that feeling was very much a case of the facilitators pointing in the direction of our spiritual nature. So because they were pointing in that direction, and that was the compass point, that was the North Star, if you like, I think everybody was kind of pulled in that direction. So we all kind of showed up at different levels of understanding. Some people were brand new to the principles. Some people have been around it for a while. Obviously, Bill Pettit is one of the, can I call him one of the founding fathers? I think he'd be okay with that. But there was this sort of like mixed bag. But I think because all the, you know, the facilitation and the way that Rohini has set this up had this vision to, you know, be pointing towards our spiritual nature. It's kind of like everybody was cutting to the chase. That was the compass point. We're looking at our spiritual nature. And I think what happened over the course of time is that the rhythm that developed around the team, the Soul-Centered series team, was this sort of, this beautiful feeling that was really coming out of that focal point of looking at the spiritual nature. And so for me, sitting at the back of the room, I could see how that rhythm sort of developed over the course of, you know, maybe 3 or 4 months. You know, that's when I think then a really noticeable change happened. I mean, certainly from the point of view of talking to people, getting feedback, they said that every weekend, one of the things that kept cropping up was that, you know, we'd go deep the first weekend and I thought, well, kind of, I'm done here. How deeper can I go? But then the next weekend I went even deeper. And then the next weekend I went even deeper still. But for me, at the back of the room, I think that sort of at that halfway point, there was this just really tangible, noticeable, beautiful feeling. And I've heard a lot of facilitators talk about, you know, the idea of corn kernels popping popcorn. And it was almost like, you know, I can see how that metaphor really was, because it was like staring at a microwave, looking at all those corn seeds, thinking, are they ever going to pop? And all of a sudden, pop, pop, pop. Everybody was just on one page, one beautiful feeling. And that's why I'm reminded of you know, that soccer metaphor works for me so well, because I feel like, yeah, in a sense, we kind of all found that rhythm. We all found the rhythm of that beautiful feeling. And it was all about the facilitation pointing towards our spiritual nature. So for me, you know, and on an individual level, it was quite magical, but just observing the room and observing the team, as it were, come together and rally around this beautiful feeling, just because the facilitation were pointing towards it, was quite magical. And, you know, I can think that there probably are other programs out there, like you can go to the conference and you can see a whole bunch of different facilitators, and there is something very special and very unique, and you know, you will certainly drop into that beautiful feeling. But there was something extra special about having an opportunity to have, you know, go deeper and deeper and deeper each month, following that same thread, following that beautiful feeling. So that's kind of my 10 cents, but it was a really magical program. And you know, I'm a little bit biased, but I cannot recommend it enough. For all of the above.
Oh, thank you. And I love your metaphors, Angus. And they always do seem to work, even though you use every excuse to talk about soccer that you can. Football, I should say. Well, I think, you know, you've heard from all of us, and this is really an opportunity. If you have any questions, if you're considering the program, so if there's any questions that would help you in that consideration. Part of the reason why we have this call today is because the early bird offer, where the price is, the early bird price ends tomorrow. So this gives you an opportunity, if you want to get the discounted rate with Early Bird to ask your questions now. And I'm happy to answer questions, Angus will, but if you have a specific question for any of the panelists, they'd be happy to answer your questions too. And if you have a question, click the raise hand button. If you click the participants button and then the raise hand button, I'll see. And I don't see anyone raising their hand. I know we have some other people that were in the program, so if anybody else wants to share anything, please feel free to do so. And I'll wait a little bit. And oh, there we go, Lydia.
Hi, everyone. So
Hi,
I
Lydia.
appreciate the sharing, and I'm kind of going to ask a question that could put you on the spot, but knowing that it's kind of confidential, I'm just curious for past participants, what kind of one takeaway on one favorite speaker and one thing that you remember that really touched you.
From all of them, you'd like to hear that?
Anyone who would like to share.
Okay, so if anyone would like to share that.
I can share. I don't know if somebody else jumped in already. Okay, so one thing that, like, it is true, I had so many different insights, but one that kept coming back to me over and over again was I went up to Kathy Casey and I asked her a question about something. And I'm like watching her listen to me so quietly. And towards the end, she's like, you know what would I think would help you? And I was like, what? And she was like, for you to see how hypervigilant your thinking is. And it was like having people so lovingly reflect back just little things that they were noticing. And then when she said that to me, it was the first time I ever saw that my thinking was trying to answer questions that hadn't happened yet. So the amount of quiet I got after her just saying that simple thing was just something I didn't expect and was pretty profound. So that's one of the ones that stands out for me.
That's such a great question, Lydia, because every weekend I would say, I think this is my favorite teacher. And then the next weekend I say, oh, wait, I think it's this one. And it's like my head, every weekend that would pass, I would try to compare that current speaker with the ones before. I guess our minds do that. But I really can't say I have a favorite. Now I have many favorites that I didn't have before. Because again, the environment is so intimate that I really, really appreciated it. And one of the many memorable moments was that I remember, being in so many other programs where it would be in the curriculum to take a minute of silence or 2 minutes of silence. But I remember this one time, was it with Kathy? I can't remember, or maybe with Judith, that all of a sudden the whole room became so silent. And it was as if we all knew 2-3 minutes of silence. I don't know, Rohini, if you remember that, but I was just blown away by that I was silent. And then all of a sudden I noticed that, oh my God, the whole room is silent and we're not trying to go anywhere. The facilitators aren't looking at their watch saying, okay, now on to the next lesson. So that was just one of many, many memorable moments that helped me just feel the safety within myself, because safety was a huge but something I was looking at, how I'm creating so much busyness in my life just to feel safe. So.
Thank you. Angus, you want to go? Hang on, let me unmute you. There you go. You're unmuted now.
Yeah, just piggybacking on Nushin with that silence. That was one of the things that, for me, as the floor co-producer, was that I was concerned how that would read for the people watching online, because there were those moments, and the silence for me, that's kind of like become quite commonplace when you go to 3P seminars, where it seems like that silence is indicative of people just dropping into a beautiful feeling and just sort of basking in that experience. So I've witnessed that on numerous occasions, but I was still concerned as to how that would read for the people watching online. So when I eventually, one of my jobs actually with this series was to actually get feedback, get testimonials. So when I spoke to the people who did it online, one of the things I was so surprised about is that they all, as one, mentioned how impactful those moments were, where, those moments of silence were just something that really they were able to really feed into that feeling in a very profound way. So that was really shocking to me, and also, beautiful realization as well. And then as far as Lydia, in how I would answer that question, I certainly think that all the facilitators were amazing, but one of the things that I love the personal stories, but one of the things that I really always am amazed by are the personal stories, I think, from people like Bill Pettit, Judith Sedgman, George Pransky. They've all got stories about working with people who are suffering from schizophrenia even, who they are able, through sharing this understanding, to get a shift in their understanding, suffering with this experience, that they can actually see it as just thought. So hearing those stories and hearing that there are countless stories along those lines, that to me was just mind-blowing. And I think a lot of people in the room were just really touched by that. So I love the personal stories. That's been a feature for me that's always been very impressive about this program.
Thanks, Angus. Kine, and then Jessie.
Yeah, one of the great things that I've experienced in this program is that we get to talk to the teachers during one of the breaks. If it's 1 or 2 times, I don't remember. But we can, we could talk to the teachers themselves and share or ask questions and whatever. And that was so great, especially since I wasn't physically there to talk to them. I had a chance to talk to them anyway. So that was great. And I remember specifically the whole Friday night listening to Dick and Bettinger. And, this understanding has had a huge impact on my life before this program. But I never felt like this, some people call it home or feeling calm or just feeling this safety that's always there. I never had that. And during the whole Friday night, I was listening to him talk and I had all these questions. I had a list. I don't understand this and I want to know this and what does this mean and all of these things. So I was going to talk to him before the next Saturday, the next day. And I had a good night's sleep. I woke up the next morning and I looked outside the window and I had tears running down my face and I just got it, just like that. And I had a meeting with him and then I said, I had all these questions, but now I don't have anything. I don't know what to say other than thank you, because I feel it. I can't explain it, but I feel it. It's and that was just so kind of funny moment. I had a list and the list just disappeared and we had a really good conversation and it felt really kind of close, even though I'm in a totally different country. So yeah. And now also I have to mention that, Angus has been amazing. I just pictured him running around, doing stuff and sometimes we had this group things where we had to do stuff and then Angus pops up hey, I can do it with you and yeah, so that's also been great. So
yeah, thanks, Kine. And what Kine is referring to for the virtual participants, we do set aside time that's just a specific Zoom call with the facilitators and only the virtual participants, so they get that extra connection since they're not physically there to chat on the breaks. Jessie. Oh, hang on, let me unmute you.
Got it.
There you are.
Just part of that extra special sauce. And I just kind of wanted to emphasize what Julie was saying, because it was well, it's all unscripted, but it was in an unscripted moment that she's referring to, that she had this exchange. And, back to kind of what I was mentioning about the total accessibility, you just don't know, but you've made yourself available for those magical moments to happen, you know, just by showing up either place, you know, you've made yourself available, and they happen, and you never know when they're going to happen, but they actually happen. And somehow in, you know, the curation of the people and the arc of the experience, it's perfect, you know, it's just perfect how it began, how it was bookended with Elsie. It just was perfect. And I think it's interesting to note that, like, we're coming back. And sometimes you look at that and go, what do you need to come back for? You already did it. You know what I mean? Why would you do it again? Why would you repeat it? Are you auditing it? Did you like not get something in the curriculum chapter, whatever? And no, it isn't any of that. It's the feeling, it's the immersion, it's the grounding, it's the change that all of us could just like take out and show you, like a before and an after, you know, which might be fun to do. Even, you know, take a picture of me before I was kind of and now, you know, it's got its own special sauce and magic to it. So we're coming back for more.
Great. Thank you, Jessie. And Ellen said she'd like to share something on the private chat. That's how I knew. I'm not psychic. Are people thinking she's psychic? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Ellen.
Jessie, it was nice to be able to witness that in you and everyone, you know, but I did, yeah. So, you know, I'm always speaking up about the office hours, but I had a lot of deep insights through the office hours sharing, and we would often have like a theme come forward in the office hours that was, and just the sharing between us, the participants, with Rohini, with, you know, and your excellent coaching and guiding and sharing. Rohini was, you know, really deep and powerful. And it was really funny during the year. I was like, gosh, it would be really nice to have like a follow-up webinar with the weekend speaker. I mean, I loved that, having new speakers in between, but I can't even imagine what's going to happen next year with the continuity of having a weekend with a teacher and then a follow-up webinar to share even deeper. I mean, that's going to just, that's going to be awesome. So I don't know if I shared my idea with you or if you telepathically got it, but I think that's
I don't remember you sharing it. But great minds think alike, Ellen.
Yeah. It's a fantastic add to the program. And I participated once virtually, and I just for the people that are going to be participating virtually, I believe am I accurate saying that there's not just there's two opportunities to share with, you know, in a small group with the participants, but I mean with the speaker, but isn't there also an opportunity to, you know, message Angus with a question, and so it's like you are still actively participating.
Absolutely, yeah. Questions can be asked at any point for virtual participants, but there is that extra, just special time that's given to them without the people in the room, where they get to or get that time.
In addition,
in addition, thanks.
So
thanks for
and
clarifying.
thank you, Angus and Rohini, for following your hearts and sharing an incredible program.
Thank you, Ellen. Wonderful. So let's see, Michelle. Do you want to unmute yourself, Michelle? Do you want me to do it? There you go.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm sort of going to answer the question. I think it's tough to say which speaker. Each one had so much and their own way of saying so many different things. What I think was really good about this whole flow was that it was like a gentle but deep, long immersion process. And I had been curious about each of these teachers through brief introductions to them through another program, but to be able to sit with each one for a weekend once a month was the perfect amount, perfect pacing, and also the perfect depth, because we all are busy, have so much going on, but then to have this one week where I'm saying, okay, no, this is it. And in addition to that, the really amazing thing that came of it for me too, and I think for others, I've heard other people say this, is the community. That was an unexpected bonus, is just the new friendships and it's almost like becoming a better friend with yourself in the process, because you're around all these people who are they're unafraid to express how human they are. I have not been one of those people. For me to even speak like this right now, thank you, Rohini, because this is probably the 5th time, you can count it, that I've ever spoken like this and not been shaking and having a hard time breathing. I'm okay. And I think it's through participating in the office hours and also the weekends. Ellen, Julie, and a few other people who are speaking all the time and about things that are really personal. And it was such a safe environment for me to witness all of that and be like, oh, it's okay. And this is a safe space. And that helped me start to feel safe, start to see that this is going to sound so weird, start to see that there are actually some really good, cool people out there. I used to work in entertainment, so and another industry that's made me think otherwise. So there is all of that. I will say each speaker did say something profound, but the one thing I can remember in this moment that kind of rocked me was, for so many years, there was always this little quote that would be helpful. It's like, oh yeah, universe has my back, universe has my back. And then I believe it was the weekend with Elsie, and Elsie's like, universe doesn't need to have your back. You are a part of it. It's a part of you. And I just sat there and thought, wow, game changer, complete game changer. And through the months where there'd be challenging things going on ever since the program ended, I would find myself starting to say, oh yeah, universe has my back. And I catch myself, I'm like, no, not even necessary. Being guided the whole time, everything is okay. Even when it sucks, it's okay. And I don't need to judge myself for not doing something better. Just everything has been a really lovely, evolving, and yeah, now I'm losing my words, but there was this amazing piece, and being able to experience some challenging stuff in life in a way that's a lot freer and a lot more powerful, even though I would have the human moments in the midst of it all.
That's beautiful, Michelle. And I acknowledge you for sharing. I really do. It's beautiful to see. All right, well, I don't see any other hands raised. I did put my email, I'm putting my number, I'm gonna put the website link in the chat. So just in case anybody's considering the program and you wanna reach out afterwards, please feel free to connect. And like I said, the early bird is going through July 31st, so that ends tomorrow night. And I just feel so grateful to participate in this program. I'm learning and growing, and it is such a heartfelt project. And I know that the next group, as we come together, that we're all going to be dropping into that same space. it's amazing to know what's possible and to know that even more is available as we go through it a second time around. So if you feel called to join, we'd love to have you, and completely understand if it doesn't resonate. But it's a program if you want to deep dive into the understanding and that deeper connection with yourself and that deeper experience. As Angus is saying, the feeling, it's really focusing on that.
Can I say
Yeah,
something, Rohini? I just wanted to say that, you know, before doing the Soul Center series, I thought I got the 3 Ps. Like I didn't think it was necessary for me to do it. I thought, you know, I got it. It's made such an impact in my life. I'm coaching with it. Why would I need to do it? And I think if I hadn't done the program, I think my understanding of the 3 Ps still would have been intellectual. And I think being part of it, I realized how I was holding it as a method instead of just being, like really just an understanding of how things are. So I just wanted to add that. So I'm so grateful that this program came out of inspiration for you, you know, because I just would not have experienced this kind of depth without it.
Oh, thank you, Nish. Appreciate that. Yeah, Michelle, we can't stop you now. Go ahead.
No, well, Nisheen just reminded me of something I did want to mention. One of the most, it was such a really great, everything was great, but one of the cool things that I experienced was, you know, coming from being somewhat new to the principles when this program started, when SES started, and by the time it ended, watching or experiencing myself ask so many fewer, or even maybe stopping asking the how questions. And I know that's something going in when we're new, because I hear other people doing it now. I'm like, oh, I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. How cool is that? But there's not a how to anymore. It's just, oh, I get it.
That's lovely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if anybody has any final comments they'd like to share, not required, but feel free. And then we'll wrap it up. I think we're good then. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. And like I said, I'm available to answer any questions after this. Thank you, panelists, and thank you for everyone, not just the panelists that shared today. And it was just really nice to drop into the feeling already. It feels like, you know, that's already kind of on this call. So excited to see if any of you join, and just sending you all my love. And I'm going to unmute everybody so that we can